The day my family realized they needed me, they didn't say thank you. They didn't apologize. They didn't even acknowledge what they had done. They just looked at me differently, like something had changed, like something had shifted, like I wasn't background anymore. But here's the truth. Nothing about me changed. They just ran out of options. I need you to fix this. My brother said it first, not as a request, as a statement, like it was obvious, like it had always been my role. I looked at him, calm. No, that was the first time in my life I had ever said that to my family. I wasn't ignored. That's the mistake people make when they hear stories like this. Ignored means you're not seen. I was seen, just not counted. There's a difference. Being ignored hurts. Being unimportant reshapes you. Every family has a system. Most people just don't realize it. In mine, everything was already decided. My father was control. My mother was image. My brother was potential. My sister was emotion. And me, I was stability. Not leadership. Not vision. Stability. The one who made things work when no one else could. The one who didn't break. The one who handled it. That sounds like strength. It's not. It's a role. I learned that role early. Not through lessons, through patterns. At 10 years old, I understood something no one ever explained. Value in my family was not about who you were. It was about what you provided. There was a dinner, guests, noise, expectation. My brother was in the living room, making people laugh. My sister was at the piano, being admired. My parents were hosting, being respected. And me? I was in the kitchen, refilling drinks, carrying plates, cleaning things no one noticed were dirty. At one point, someone looked at me and smiled. You're such a good helper. Helper. That word stayed longer than it should have, because helper is what people call you when they don't plan to give you anything else. That night, I didn't feel angry. I adjusted. That's how it starts. Not with resistance, with adaptation. As I got older, the pattern didn't change. It became clearer. My brother made mistakes. He was corrected. I made mistakes. I was defined by them. My sister struggled. She was supported. I struggled. I was expected to handle it. And over time, I stopped expecting anything else. People like to praise resilience. They shouldn't. Because resilience, in the wrong environment, becomes permission. Permission for people to rely on you without respecting you. When I joined my father's company, nothing was said. No official role, no clear title, just expectation. And I filled it. Operations, logistics, problem solving, the parts no one sees, the parts no one celebrates, the parts everything depends on. I wasn't building the business. I was holding it together. There's a difference. Building creates recognition. Holding creates dependency. And dependency is invisible. My brother walked into meetings. I walked into problems. He spoke. I fixed. He expanded. I stabilized. And guess who looked more important? One day, in a meeting, my father said something that stayed longer than it should have. Daniel understands growth. Pause. Noah understands maintenance. Maintenance. That was the word he chose. Not strategy, not structure, not systems. Maintenance. Like I was what you needed after something already mattered. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't react. Because I understood something. This wasn't about truth. It was about perception. And perception had already been decided. Not everyone saw me that way. My grandmother did. She didn't praise me. She didn't comfort me. She did something better. She described me correctly. You understand what keeps things from breaking, she said once. That was it. No emotion, no exaggeration, just accuracy, and that mattered more than approval ever could. When she died, she didn't leave me affection. She left me responsibility, assets, control, leverage. Not enough to change everything, but enough to change something. My position. That's when it shifted. Subtly, not emotionally, strategically. My brother became interested. My mother became careful. My father became aware. For the first time, I wasn't just useful, I was relevant. And that should have felt like progress. It didn't, because relevance shouldn't come from leverage. Then it happened. The moment everything broke. My father had a stroke, not fatal, not dramatic, but enough. Enough to remove control. Enough to expose the system. Suddenly, everything needed decisions. Real ones. Immediate ones. And for the first time, no one knew what to do. My brother tried. Fast decisions, confident tone, wrong outcomes. My mother tried. Control through image, stability through denial. It didn't work. My sister disappeared into emotion, and then they all did something they had never done before. They looked at me, not as support, as the only option. That was the moment. Not when they needed me, when they realized there was no one else. And for the first time in my life, I understood something. I wasn't invisible. They had just never needed to see me. Until now, the first time they asked for my help, it sounded normal. Not desperate, not urgent, just expected. We just need you to step in for now. My mother said it like it was temporary, like nothing had really changed, like I was just filling space, until things went back to normal. But nothing about it was temporary, and nothing was going back. That was the moment. Something inside me changed. Not emotionally, structurally, because for the first time, I saw it clearly. They didn't suddenly trust me. They just ran out of people to rely on. My brother took control first. Of course he did. That was always his role. Fast decisions, confident tone, big moves. He called meetings, spoke in absolutes, reassured everyone. And for a moment, it worked. Because confidence can hold a system together for a very short time. The first mistake wasn't obvious. That's what made it dangerous. A supplier contract renewed with the wrong terms. Not catastrophic, just misaligned. Then a delivery delay. Then another. Then a client complaint. That shouldn't have happened. Small things, but repeatable. And repeatable problems are structural. That's when my phone started ringing. Not once. Not twice. Constantly. Can you check this? Can you look at this? Can you fix this? Fix. That word. Again. The role they had trained me into. For a moment, I almost said yes. Reflex. Habit. Because that's what I had always done. I fixed things. Without question. Without recognition. Without boundaries. But this time, I paused. Not long. Just enough to see the pattern. If I stepped in now, everything would stabilize, and nothing would change. I would go back to being invisible, just essential. So I did something I had never done before. I didn't fix it, not immediately, not for free. What do you need exactly? I asked. Not emotionally, not defensively, clearly. That confused them, because clarity wasn't part of our system. We just need you to handle it, she said, like it was obvious, like it had always been obvious. And that's when I said it. I don't handle things anymore, without structure. Silence, because that wasn't refusal, it was something worse, a condition. For the first time, I wasn't reacting, I was defining, and that changed everything. This isn't the time for that, my brother said. There it was. Pressure, expectation, control, trying to reassert itself. I looked at him, calm. This is exactly the time for that. Because now, they needed me, and need changes leverage. That's when I saw it. Not in what they said, in what they couldn't answer. They didn't understand the system. Not really. They understood pieces, roles, expectations, but not structure. And without structure, everything depends on the one person who sees it. Me. I didn't refuse completely. That would have been emotional. I stepped in, on my terms, defined scope, clear authority, decision boundaries, not as support, as control. At first, they agreed, because they had no choice, and because they didn't understand what they were agreeing to. That was the second mistake. I started small. Supplier alignment, delivery restructuring, internal communication flow, nothing dramatic. Just correct. And within days, things stabilized. Not perfectly, but noticeably. That's when it happened. The shift. Not in the business, in the dynamic. They stopped asking if I could fix things. They started assuming I would. That's the trap. Because assumption removes value. Only this time, I didn't let it. I didn't move faster. I didn't take more. I didn't absorb everything. I controlled the pace. Because control comes from timing. That's when my brother changed. Subtly. He stopped giving direction. He started asking questions. Not openly. Carefully. Trying to understand. What he didn't see. And for the first time, he was behind. That's when I realized something. I hadn't just stepped in. I had become the system. And once that happens, everything else depends on you, including the people who spent years pretending you didn't matter. The change didn't happen all at once. That's what made it invisible. At first, everything just felt easier. Fewer delays, cleaner communication, less confusion, nothing dramatic, just smooth. From the outside, it looked like recovery, like the company was stabilizing after my father's stroke, like things were getting back on track. That's what they believed. That was their third mistake. I wasn't restoring the old system. I was replacing it. Quietly, piece by piece. The first thing I took control of was information, not access. Flow. Who sees what? When they see it. How it's interpreted. Because information defines reality, and whoever controls reality controls decisions. Then I adjusted timing. Not deadlines, not schedules. Priority. What gets handled first? What gets delayed? What feels urgent? Because urgency is what drives behavior. And behavior creates dependency. Finally, I controlled access. Not by blocking people, by becoming necessary. If something needed to move, it moved through me. Not by force, by design. That's when it happened. The system didn't just improve, it reorganized. Around me. And no one said it. But everyone felt it. My mother stopped managing appearances. She started asking for updates. My sister stopped disappearing. She started checking in. My brother stopped leading. And that was the real shift. At first, he tried to maintain control. Still running meetings. Still making decisions. But something was off. His decisions didn't hold. They needed correction. And correction kept coming back to me. That's how authority erodes. Not through failure, through dependence. You're routing everything through yourself, he said one day. Not accusing, observing. I looked at him. Calm. No. Pause. They're routing through what works. Silence. Because that wasn't control. It was preference. And preference can't be forced. This is where it changes. Not for them. For me. Because I realized something dangerous. I could hold everything together, or I could let it break. And both outcomes depended on me. That kind of control isn't power, it's weight. Because once you see the system, you can't pretend you don't. And once people depend on you, you decide what happens next. So I tested it. Not dramatically, just slightly. I delayed one decision, nothing critical, just enough to see what would happen. The system didn't collapse, but it shifted. People adjusted, questions increased, pressure built, and within hours, they came back to me. That's when I knew. Not thought. Knew. This wasn't a role anymore. It was control. Then my father came back. Not fully, not strong, but a present. And he saw it immediately. Not the system, the shift. He looked at me differently. Not like before. Not like I was background. Like I was something he didn't fully understand anymore. You've changed things, he said. Not accusing, not praising, recognizing. I shook my head. No. Pause. They changed around me. That's when it hit him. Not completely, but enough. Because for the first time, my family wasn't deciding what I was. They were reacting to what I had become. And the worst part? They still thought they could control it. The tension didn't explode. It condensed. You could feel it in the house, in the office, in the pauses between conversations. Nothing was said directly, but everything had changed. My mother called for dinner. That alone meant something. We hadn't sat together like that in a long time. Not without distraction, not without roles. This time, it was intentional. That's when I knew. They were going to try to reset the system. My father sat at the head, weaker, quieter. My mother beside him, composed, controlled. My sister across, watching everything. And my brother, next to me. That was new. Too close. Too deliberate. We've been thinking, my mother said. That phrase never means what it sounds like. It means we've decided something, and now we're presenting it, as if you're part of it. We need to restructure things, she continued. There it was. Control. Trying to come back. You've done well, he said. Measured. Careful. But not warm. Never warm. It's time to formalize your role. That should have felt like recognition. It didn't. Because I understood something. They didn't. They weren't giving me power. They were trying to contain it. We'll make you head of operations, my brother said. Quick. Confident. Like he had prepared that line. You'll handle internal systems, he continued, and I'll handle growth. There it was. The old structure. Repackaged, reoffered, reimposed. I didn't respond immediately. Not because I needed time. Because I wanted them to feel it. The gap. The difference between what they thought was happening and what actually was. That doesn't work anymore, I said. Calm, clear, not emotional. That made it worse. What do you mean? My brother asked. Too fast, too defensive, because he already knew. He just didn't want to accept it. It worked when I supported the system, I said. Pause. It doesn't work now that I am the system. Silence. Heavy. Because that sentence changed everything. My father leaned forward slightly. First time all night. You think you're in control? He asked. Not angry. Testing. I shook my head. No. Pause. I know where control is. That was the moment. Because I didn't claim power. I defined it. If I stop, I said. Pause. Everything slows down. No one spoke. Because they knew it was true. They had seen it. Felt it. And if I don't fix things, I continued. Pause. They don't get fixed. That's when it hit them. Not emotionally, structurally. They didn't need me to help. They needed me to function. That's not how this works, she said. Calm, controlled, but thinner now, because control requires alternatives, and they didn't have any. So what are you saying? He asked. There it was, the real question. Not about roles, about reality. I'm saying, pause. You don't decide my role anymore. Silence, complete. My sister looked down. My mother stiffened. My brother froze. And my father finally understood. Not everything, but enough. Because for the first time, the system wasn't built around him. It was built around what worked. And what worked was me. That night, nothing exploded, no shouting, no arguments, just silence. 'Cause they had finally seen something they couldn't unsee. I wasn't their support anymore. I was their only option. And the worst part? I was the one who decided what happened next. After that dinner, nothing broke. That's what made it worse. Everything kept running. Orders moved. Trucks left. Invoices processed. On the surface, it looked stable. But underneath, something had shifted. Not in the business. In them. They stopped telling me what to do. That sounds small. It wasn't. Because for years, direction had always come from them. Now, it didn't. They waited. For me. My phone didn't stop. Not with instructions. With questions. What should we prioritize? Do we approve this? Is this the right move? Not suggestions. Requests. That's how dependency sounds. My brother tried to maintain control, still running meetings, still speaking first. But something had changed. People didn't follow his words anymore. They watched me. Not openly, but enough. And once attention shifts, authority follows. It happened midweek. A contract decision. Not complex. Routine. My brother approved it. And for the first time, it didn't hold. Supplier pushback, delivery conflict, margin loss, all at once. And suddenly, everyone turned to me. Not because they wanted to, because they had to. Can you fix it? That question, again, the same one. But this time, it felt different, heavier, because now they understood what it meant. I didn't answer immediately. I looked at them, all of them. My father, my mother, my brother, my sister. And for the first time, they weren't looking past me. They were waiting on me. I can, I said. Pause. But I'm not going to keep fixing things the way I used to. Silence, because that wasn't refusal. It was change. If I fix it, I continued. Pause. It stays fixed. No one spoke, because they didn't fully understand what that meant. But they felt it. And that was enough. I corrected the contract, not patched it, rebuilt it. Supplier terms, priority alignment, delivery structure, everything. And when it was done, it didn't need me anymore. That's the difference. Fixing solves problems. Structure removes them. That's when they saw it. Not just what I could do, what I had been doing all along. Quietly, without credit, without control, without recognition. My father called me into his office, not as authority, as something else. I didn't see it, he said. Simple, direct, no defense. That mattered. Because for the first time, he wasn't correcting me. He was understanding me. You weren't supposed to, I said. Calm. Because that was the truth. The system never required him to see me until it depended on me. My brother didn't confront me again, not directly, because he understood something now. Not emotionally, structurally. He couldn't replace me because what I built wasn't visible, and invisible systems are the hardest to take. By the end of that week, everything worked. perfectly. And for the first time, they weren't asking if I mattered. They were depending on it completely. And that's when I understood something. I didn't need them to see me anymore, because now they couldn't function without me. By the time everything was stable, no one talked about it. Not directly. No one said, "You saved it." No one said, "We were wrong." Because that's not how families like mine work. They don't admit change. They adapt to it. Everything moved differently now. Not because I forced it, because it couldn't move any other way. Decisions slowed, processes clarified, structure replaced instinct. And for the first time, the company didn't feel like control. It felt like system. I didn't take a title. That's important. Because titles can be given and taken. What I had couldn't. Control through structure, not position, not authority, alignment. My mother stopped managing perception. She started asking real questions. My sister stopped performing emotion. She started paying attention. My brother stopped trying to lead. He started learning. Not from me directly, but from the system he couldn't ignore. It happened late, after everything had settled. No urgency, no pressure, just quiet. He called me into his office, not as authority, not as expectation, as something else, recognition. "You were always doing this," he said. Not a question, a realization. I nodded, because that was the truth. Nothing I did was new, only visible. "You just never needed to see it," I said. Silence. Because now, he understood something he had avoided his entire life. Control isn't loud, it isn't visible, and it doesn't ask for attention. It just holds everything together. For years, they thought I didn't matter, because nothing broke, nothing failed, nothing collapsed. And when nothing collapses, no one asks why. Now, they knew. It wasn't luck. It wasn't timing. It wasn't them. It was me. I didn't ask for acknowledgement. I didn't need it anymore, because value isn't something people say. It's something they depend on. When I walked out of that office, nothing felt different, because everything already was. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to prove anything. I wasn't trying to be seen. I wasn't trying to matter. I just did. They didn't start valuing me when I became important. They valued me the moment they built something that couldn't survive without me.